And what's been maybe the busiest 24-hour cycle for the Broncos since they either traded for Russell Wilson or traded for Sean Payton, we've got more details emerging about what went down behind the scenes. Now, before we get into all these details, these are just speculation / good sources, so nothing's been proven as a fact, but I've got reason to believe a lot of what we're about to read is fact. So with that being said, let's jump into Jordan Schultz from Bleacher Report, who put out an absolute novel of a tweet. And here it goes. The Broncos threatened to bench Russell Wilson weeks ago if he didn't remove his injury guarantees. Russell Wilson's benching by the Broncos today is solely financially related and has been in the works for weeks, per multiple sources with direct access to the situation. This is where we get a bit of a big J off, because I've got Jordan Schultz saying it's solely financially related, and I've got Ian Rappaport being a bit of a mouthpiece and others for Sean Payton, who says it feels like Broncos coach Sean Payton just wants to see his offense run as it should be. So we've got two different reasonings behind Russell Wilson's benching. Some say it's financially related, that if Russell Wilson got injured at all, the Denver Broncos would be on the hook for $37 million in 2025. And then other people say, no, it's just they want to get a spark on offense. I don't really know how much I buy the spark on offense with 2 games left and you've got very little chance of making the postseason. I'm more inclined to believe it's the financial reason. But two different reasonings being given as to why Russ got benched. More from Schultz. The Broncos approached Wilson 2 days after their October 29th upset win over the Kansas City Chiefs and told him he would be made inactive for the rest of the season if he did not adjust his contract and defer the injury guarantee trigger date that he has for 2025. Wilson has $37 million in injury guarantees for 2025 that will become guaranteed no matter what on the 5th day of the 2024 league year in March. The threat, however, shocked him, and the two sides got into a major dispute on how to proceed. Personally, I've got no issue with how either side handled this, right? From the Broncos standpoint, they've got a quarterback that's been underwhelming for what they paid him and what they traded for him. I think even Russ would probably agree deep down these are not his best days, and this is not his best performance compared to what everyone thought, and I mean everyone, universally, yourself included, thought the Broncos were going to get out of Russell Wilson when they traded for him. So no shocker that Sean, George, and Greg, all the high-ups right now in Denver, are a little worrisome that if Russell Wilson were to get injured, they would be on the hook for $37 million guaranteed in 2025. So no surprise they approach Russ saying, hey, how about we reword that part of your contract? And if I'm Russell Wilson, I've got no issue saying no to that, right? If I'm Russ, no, you don't want to tear that up. If you were to get injured the next game, all of a sudden you are out millions of dollars potentially. So I've got no issue with either side here approaching this the way they did, because it makes sense from a business standpoint for the Broncos to want to reword that contract, knowing he has not lived up to what they paid him, $250 million. And if I'm Russell Wilson, he's got the money. Why would he agree to reword a contract that leaves him vulnerable to lose out on all those millions of dollars for 2025? More from Schultz. The issue remained, but the Broncos stuck with Wilson as the team strung together primetime wins over the Buffalo Bills and Minnesota Vikings, followed by another win over the Cleveland Browns, one of the league's best defenses. When the threat was made by the Broncos, the team, Wilson's camp, the NFLPA, and another unknown party were involved in negotiations that ended with no change in Wilson's contract. And it all came crashing down today when Sean Payton and other top-level members of Denver's organization decided to go ahead with the plan they've had for weeks. The only surprise that I have over the last 24 hours is, to me, it seems like the Broncos are making a decision to move on from Russell Wilson after this year. Diana Rossini put something out about that just yesterday, and it's an $85 million dead cap hit. Like, you're going to see a lot of people in the comment section going to battle over the difference of $37 and $39 million and the amount that becomes guaranteed for 2025. Guys, slice it up, dice it up however you want. There is still a bill to be paid, and it's an $85 million dead cap hit. And by moving on from Russ for the last 2 games, making him the backup, I don't see a way that Denver brings him back in 2024. And to me, that blows my mind because they are going to double the NFL dead cap hit and then add a little bit of whipped cream and cherry on top. So let me know, was benching Russ the right decision? Like this is an issue, a question, whatever you want to call it, that has the fan base in my eyes split 50-50 down the middle. And I'll give you my answer in just a moment. But really quickly, I do want to tell you guys about our terrific sponsor today, which is Prize Picks. So if you're unfamiliar with Prize Picks, let me get you caught up to speed. The way Prize Picks works is you pick 2 to 6 players and then pick more or less on their projected stats. Now, if you pick 6 players and correctly get all their projected stats, well, you can win up to 25 times your money. So let me give you an example of what I'm rolling with this Week 17 slate. I'm taking the more on Amari Cooper receiving yards. Now, he's currently limited or questionable with an ankle injury. If he does not play, Prize Picks, they're super nice. They throw that out the window for you. Now, I'm taking the more on Jonathan Taylor's rushing yards. I like the more on Kyler Murray's passing yards, as the Cardinals have been looking a lot better recently, and the Eagles appear to be going in the wrong direction. And then finally, I like the more for the red-hot Rams, Matthew Stafford's passing yards, as LA is in the fight of their lives to get a postseason spot. So make sure you check them out at prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. That link is in the comments and description of today's video. Was moving on from Russ the right decision? Well, let's start by answering a couple of questions first. Was Russell Wilson overpaid and underwhelming? Of course. I'd be hard-pressed to find anyone that could actually say Russell Wilson lived up to even half of his contract or half of what they gave up for him. Was he better this year than last year? Yeah, but that's not saying a whole lot, guys. He threw 16 touchdowns last year. He only has 12 bathrooms in his house. He barely beat the number of toilets in his house. So, no, I'm not going to be persuaded because he was better this year when the bar was so low. The bar was the first bar they do when you do a limbo at a birthday party. Thank you. Next one. Was Russell Wilson the only problem? No. If you believe Russell Wilson is the sole issue for the Denver Broncos' offensive problems this year, I think you're misguided. They had 2 bad free agent signings in Ben Powers and Mike McGlinchey for what they paid, and they got better production out of Cam Fleming and Dalton Reisner last year for a lot less money. Are the wide receivers very good this year? Outside of Cortland Sutton? Not really. You're not getting a whole lot of separation downfield, and Jerry Jeudy is a ghost half of the time. So Russell Wilson is definitely an issue with this offense, but he is not the only issue. And I think that might come to light over the next 2 weeks when Jarrett Stidham finds himself dealing with a lot of similar issues. Now, Russell Wilson is definitely a fair portion of the problem when it comes to all the sacks because he just runs into tackles for some reason. He is allergic to staying in a pretty good pocket, but Russell Wilson, in my opinion, is not the only problem. It is not a simple remove Russ and everything's going to move smoothly. Finally, is cutting Russell Wilson a bad decision? I think so. And I've got 85 million reasons to think so. Like, this is going to be a monstrous dead cap hit. I think everyone is way too focused on, but the 5th day in March and the $37 million in 2025. Guys, the $85 million is not going anywhere. The dead cap hit in 2024 is a manageable $35.4 million. Just that number alone is top 5 in all-time biggest dead cap hits. Just the $35 million. Then in 2025, it's a $49.6 million dead cap hit. It's tough to construct a roster when $50 million goes to a guy that's not on your team. That is very difficult for any GM to do. And inevitably, when Denver fires George Payton, because someone has to be a fall man for giving a $250 million contract out to Russ and trading for Wilson, which it will be Payton, what GM is lining up to go, I want to construct a roster where I don't even have many personnel decisions because that's Sean Payton's dojo. And whatever personnel decisions I do get, $50 million next year is out of my hands. So the $85 million is just too big of a number for me to move on from. I know the cap is a myth, but it's also not a complete myth. And that $85 million bill has to get paid, and it's going to be over the next 2 years. Sean Payton, if his plan was let's move on from Russ and draft a quarterback, all right, I can understand drafting a QB. Sure, I can get behind that. But Sean Payton has been very vocal about his frustrations with Russell Wilson's inability to run his system, a system that we saw in New Orleans for several years with several intricacies and lots of bells and whistles and quarterback play that relies on over the middle of the field passing in between the numbers. Something Drew Brees did well, something Russell Wilson does not do well. But Sean, you think Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr. or any of these other rookie QBs are going to come in here and pick up the most complicated playbook in the entire National Football League and do any better than a 14-year QB like Russell Wilson did? Like, this might be one of those moments we look back on in October, November next year where everyone goes, I can't believe Sean Payton thought a rookie QB would do better with his complex system, where Sean Payton himself said maybe there's too much going into it. And so the solution is, let's bring a rookie QB into this problem. I just don't see how any rookie quarterback is going to do any better than Russell Wilson did this season. Now, there are some good rookie quarterbacks in this upcoming draft class. I don't think Denver's going to get Drake May or Caleb Williams, so just kind of remove them from your wish list, barring a blockbuster trade to move up where the Broncos go yet another year forfeiting future first-round draft picks. Maybe Jaden Daniels slips to them if they start losing more games. Ironically enough, if Sean Payton's plan all along was, let's go draft Jaden Daniels or one of these top quarterbacks, I have no doubt in my mind that the Broncos are going to win their last 2 games, finish the year 9-8, and Jaden Daniels and Michael Penix will be selected a pick or 2 before them. Now, Michael Penix is definitely a name that jumps out to me. Jaden Daniels is my number 1 quarterback, but I don't think Jaden Daniels is going to be available to the Broncos in the teens, wherever they might end up selecting. So Michael Penix is a name to watch for if they don't decide to go through the draft, because Sean Payton, who has never had a rookie quarterback, like he got Drew Brees 4 or 5 years into his NFL career. Drew Brees had already made a Pro Bowl at that point. So let's not act like Drew Brees was just, chopped liver. He was a pretty good quarterback when Sean Payton got his hands on him. There are some free agent QBs. Kirk Cousins is going back to the Vikings. I'm pretty confident about that. Ryan Tannehill's no better than Russ. Jacoby Brissett's probably the most underrated and underappreciated backup QB, but you want to move on from an $85 million QB to go to Jacoby Brissett? That doesn't sound like a very good idea. Now, what about Jameis? Well, what about Jameis Winston? Because that's who Sean Payton had as his backup for Drew Brees for a little bit down in the Big Easy. Maybe Sean Payton believes Jameis Winston can do a better job than Russell Wilson can, and they are willing, when I say they, I mean the Walton Penner ownership group, because $85 million in dead money is something that has to be run across the top of the food chain. So maybe there's a chance that Sean Payton got approval to eat $85 million in dead money and go out and get Jameis Winston to run his system better. We'll wait and see, but if you had to pick between drafting a QB or going the free agency route, which I don't think Kirk Cousins is going to be available, I'm 90% confident, 99% confident he will re-sign with the Vikings. Jameis might be the prettiest girl at the ball. So would you rather draft a quarterback or would you rather go out and get Jameis Winston? Let me know down in the comment section. That's going to do it for us on today's show. Make sure to subscribe, though, because there are more leaks and news and rumors coming out regarding this entire Russell Wilson saga. There is so much to cover, and I don't want you to miss a thing, and you won't when you're subscribed to the channel.